Hello, MBA hopefuls. We are live on MBA Waves, the weekly vidcast every single Tuesday talking all things business and education. And we often welcome top business schools to join us for a featured episode. And I'm super excited today to have Cambridge Judge Business School with us today. And of course, my fabulous host, Bara Sapir. How you doing, Bara?
I'm doing great. It's good to see you, Eric. What country are you in today?
I am in Zurich, Switzerland, making the rounds at the QS MBA tours. So, yeah. And so, as I said, today we have Cambridge Judge with us, and I want to go around the room and introduce everyone. But first, I want to mention that one of the panelists today, Annwen Gray, is also a contributing editor for this book. This is like the playbook to have if you're looking at MBAs in the UK. And I want to thank Annwen again for participating. That was awesome. Annwen, do you want to start off by introducing yourself?
Yeah, absolutely, Eric. As always, a pleasure to work with you. My name's Annwen Gray. I'm acting head of admissions and recruitment at Cambridge Judge Business School. I've worked in the admissions and recruitment team for just over 4 years now. In my previous life, I worked in Edinburgh in undergraduate admissions, and prior to that in the wedding and event sales industry. So that seems a long time ago now. But again, delighted to be here, Eric.
Thanks, Annwen. And so you pretty much represent the entry point for Cambridge Judge. And I think another important role that we're fortunate to have with us tonight is the exit point, which is the career services team. So Sadia, take it away.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sadia Cuthbert, head of careers at CJBS at Cambridge Judge. And not just the exit point, but we have alumni engagement as well, which carries on much later as well. So continual, it seems, since the exit. Yes, so really excited to be here. I've been at the business school myself for about 12 years in different roles. Really love the place, love the environment here, etc. And prior to that, I was a stockbroker in London, and prior to that, a consultant in development. So I've sort of been through the walks of different careers, and I feel it's a culmination right now.
Sounds like you've had a lot of good experiences and very well positioned to help people coming from Cambridge Judge to find their next step in their career. And speaking of alumni, we are also fortunate to have with us Daniil, who has just graduated, and he looks very happy about it. Congratulations and welcome to MBA Waves, by the way.
You know, like looking happy, I think is my general attitude to the life. So like, yes. I graduated literally about, I think, 6 weeks ago, and I'm still in Cambridge. As you might see, you can see the beautiful building behind myself, and I think this is one of the distinctions of Cambridge above many others, but still. Yes, my experience is in tech entrepreneurship. As you might hear from my lovely accent, I'm Russian. And even last year, I was the only one Russian within a cohort, which is, I think, very rare, because I know this year they have at least 4. And I was in tech entrepreneurship my whole career, over 8 years. And this is why I'm actually stayed in Cambridge, because Cambridge is an awesome place for tech entrepreneurs. This is why I'm living here and still pursuing my entrepreneurial path.
So I don't know if he's happy because his course is over. All the hard work has been put
I'm actually sad. I didn't notice how it actually ran. Like really, time moves so fast when you are within the process.
Yeah, goes quickly.
Barry, you want to take it away? You want me to jump in first?
Well, I'm just, I'm excited to meet all of you. It's wonderful to have you on with us. And I would love to know what's new and exciting at Cambridge University, specifically at Judge Business School.
If I could jump in there, Bara, that is okay. I think it's a really exciting time for the business school at Cambridge. One of the things that we're all really excited about, and I'm sure a lot of people are already aware, is we actually have a new dean, Mauro, who joined us in September 2021. And Mauro brings a wealth of experience and is already working on building on initiatives and building on what the previous dean, Christoph Loch, and his predecessors did. So first up, we're really excited about that. And actually, if you've been keeping an eye on our events, you'll have seen that Mauro has actually been hosting a lot of lifelong learning events, which we are launching. Recently, he was in Dubai, and he's in New York later this month. So again, that's a really good thing for the community, alumni. And again, if you want to find out more, you can certainly refer to our website, and I'll sort of pass a link to that, and we'll be able to link you to that later. For the MBA itself, every couple of years, we go through a program review. We have a number of projects throughout the year, and in the final term, you're actually able to take an individual project. One of the individual projects which we're now allowed to offer for September 2023 is an international business study trip, which is a really great global offering. There'll be a lot more about that in the coming weeks, which you'll be able to find out more about. We'll have a lot more information on our website, so we're really excited about that as well. And I think purely from an MBA sort of perspective and admissions, from our side, this year we've had a really great year for female representation. We've got 47% female representatives in our current class, which we're definitely excited about. And I think that's really good. Yes, we are usually in the 40th%, but to be closer to 50% is brilliant. And hopefully we can see that in the coming years as well.
I think that's just really, really exciting to have such a strong cohort of women, and really fantastic women joining us this year again. And again, one other element I'd like to add is also a little bit more of a focus on ESG for this year and the next. We're looking at lots more work and electives, etc., being accommodated within the MBA program itself, and actually across the school as well with other programs.
Okay, thank you both for those answers. And it's really exciting about the growing population of female representation in the business school. I wanted to ask a little bit more broadly speaking with the MBA, what are some of the standout unique features of the Cambridge Judge MBA program?
Do you want me to go for that, or do you want to talk about it?
I don't mind you go for a bit if you want, and I can jump in, Sadia, either way.
So, well, the way and then of course Danny is here as well with first-hand experience, but really it's a one-year MBA. That's kind of critical to all markets. It's a September to September program, very entrepreneurial, which is why we have people like Danny as well joining us. We're right in the middle of this Silicon Fen, so to speak, where we have surrounded by companies, surrounded by people who are angel investors, etc. And there's a certain definite hum of entrepreneurial activity going on all the time. It's also a program which is very deep in experiential learning. So we offer many opportunities across the year for students to engage with companies and work. And we have the Cambridge Venture Project in the beginning, Global Consulting Project, and then again, internships and work placements, etc. It's extraordinarily collaborative. But I'll stop there and let my colleagues and Danny speak for himself. What did you think, Danny?
I think on my end, in addition to many benefits of our program, the first thing that came into my mind is actually the size of the class. Because like it is only 1 year program, so it's not a lot of time. Like someone thinks that 12 months is a lot, but in fact it is not. And the third fact that our actually class size is around 220, 210. It's an ideal class size. I can say it on my behalf, to meet within the year with no rush and have not superficial conversations with at least a half of the class. And this is a lot of networking effort, because when you have classes twice as big, 5 times as big as many US schools, for instance, it's also great. You have a more group mates and alumni. But at the very same time, for me, MBA is not about this artificial term called networking. It's about friendship. And the friendship could only be created when you spend enough time with a person.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a brilliant point. Thank you so much for mentioning that, actually, because you had you had real experience of the support, etc., that you got from the class as well. So yeah, I'm really glad you brought that point up. The class itself, besides being collaborative, is very closely knit and they support each other. One other point I'll mention is because we all went through a terrible year in 2019 with COVID hitting us completely unexpectedly. The class of 2019 showed so much resilience and so much working together, trying to help each other sort of come through this. So that really resonates, and this helps. This is helped because of the size being what it is.
I wanted to ask, by the way, what's the total student body? What's the population, sorry, within the MBA program?
So in the current class, we have 210 students.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
So generally, I think over the last couple of years, certainly since I've been on the team, it's been around about that mark, which is certainly good. And I think in terms of sort of class size, it's a really good class size, and you do get to know your classmates, as my colleagues have seen and said here today. And that is a lot of feedback we do get from alumni based on that point.
Sounds like a nice size. It's not like too behemoth like some of the ones, especially across the Atlantic, but it's also not too small. So you have a good amount of people to get to know. And as Daniil was saying, it's about the relationships you build, like working together and spending time kind of suffering, right, on projects and deadlines and making that all happen. That's That's how relationships are built. Bara, I know you had another question you wanted to jump into.
Well, you know, I mean, I'm just thinking like just globally, everyone's had a COVID story, right? And it's just super interesting how cohorts have dealt with that. You know, like some people probably didn't meet for a really long time, right? I don't know, was your school virtual for part of that time, or was it live? And how did you guys cope with that?
I'll let Annwen take that.
No, absolutely. So, yeah, COVID was an interesting time. It was for everybody, and I think there was a lot of learning through those couple of years that we experienced that, both from sort of the business school side and the class cohort. And I always say to people that I was speaking to, certainly at the time, I was like, it is actually a really good time to be in business school, to be in education, because when you come out the other side, you're going to experience a fantastic journey and be able to deal with all these sort of, I don't want to say new and interesting pressures, but challenges, and you're at the forefront of the education with people that have dealt with that and done that on a daily basis. So your actual learning for the programme has certainly been really strong. But in terms of the class itself, so yes, we did have to sort of look at doing things a different way throughout the main COVID years. But now we're pleased to say we're certainly back to the in-person in teaching. We've got the classes, we've got everyone on site. I think the world is evolving, business schools are evolving, the way that classes work are evolving. So we're just always on point to be able to adapt as needed. I don't know, sort of from the career side, if you want to add anything to that, Sadia.
So, I mean, I've noticed that the last couple of years, we've been doing all this face-to-face activity with the students, certainly in terms of teaching. Of course, we've learned a lot about online teaching as well, which is happening at the same time. But this year, we've gone back to what was the closest pre-COVID time. So we're working with 4 streams, etc., rather than having to have very small groups of students and then having to teach them because of COVID restrictions. But so it's really good to be back. We're seeing a lot more clients wanting to come in and present to students, and we certainly want to do this face-to-face. Really quite excited about this, for instance. And certainly we are seeing a lot of alums who want to come back and be back in the environment, talk to students, etc., and encourage them. And we're having panels pretty much every week, and it's great. It's really lovely to be back in person.
Yeah, I think it's a global celebration.
Yeah.
Can I jump in there as well? I think that certainly from sort of an admissions side as well, the interview offering that we've been able to offer beforehand, where you had your own campus interview day, and yes, it's been sad not to have that as much, but actually it's been really made it really accessible to people who have maybe not been able to travel in person, to really get the online experience, to see what our faculty are like, to hear more from the admissions team, to network that perhaps wasn't as available before. And that's been really good, just certainly in making those initial connections before you even sort of apply to the program, to be able to speak to people and really sort of develop your network from as soon as you think, oh, business school, I might apply.
Yeah, I think we've all changed, right? Like, I think we've all changed, and we are out of it, it seems, but when we're really out of it, like when it's a lot of time, we'll be able to really see what kind of hybrid lives we're all leading.
I totally agree. Yeah.
In talking, I mean, Danny's talking about the smaller class and you're talking about the networking, and even the best ranked schools tend to agree that finding the right fit and the right cohort, and that's what you guys do, is pull that together. So with all of the incredibly transformational MBA programs around the world, each one has their own unique methods of offering an MBA program, and it comes down to campus culture. And I know, Sadia, you also talked about how much you've been there 12 years, you love this place that you're in right now. So can you describe to our audience on MBA Waves, what is the culture at CJ?
I mean, I risk repeating myself. It is just a really vibrant place. When you walk into the building, and Danny will vouch for this as well, you feel, for the first 2 days, we get everybody dressed up in suits and they're all really suited and booted, and then soon they relax, and it's that learning environment that creates. And just to go on about the building as well, it's actually, the way it's been designed as well is so that people can walk into each other actually and start these conversations and be connected. So it's a lot of this ability to, develop things. So just to take a good thought, good activity, and take it further. I mean, when we talk to at length when you start talking about how lots of good ideas came out of Cambridge, and of course you know about how many Nobel Prizes, etc., have been awarded to the university itself and to the researchers here. A lot of these ideas are generated really in pubs and people just sitting together. We have a very strong college culture within the university as well, and that's what also allows people to be thinking in weird and wonderful ways, really. I think the MBA itself is also, and along with the building, is very transformative, and allows people to sort of expand and dare to think and dare to imagine. That's how I take it.
Sadia, you've made me think of something when you talk about the colleges, right? Which is something that's quite unique to perhaps Oxbridge or maybe Cambridge, you prefer. In the US, college and university, those two words are used interchangeably, whereas in France, for example, college is junior high school. So it's very different. So I visited Cambridge. It is beautiful. Oh my God. The history, the buildings, the church, the tower. But I got a sense of the colleges that I know from clients that I've worked with, how it works. And it largely is connected to residence halls. But I'd love to hear from you guys how you describe it. The outside world.
I'll let Annwen do that.
Sure, thank you. So the colleges, yes, we get asked this quite a lot. So the easiest way to sort of explain it, and it does sound a little bit cheesy, is if you refer to a college a little bit like your Harry Potter house. So you've got Cambridge University, it's the sort of umbrella term. Under each part of Cambridge University, you have all the departments, so Judge Business School, and you're on your programme, the MBA. So as a member of the MBA programme, you're also a member of a college. So there's 31 different colleges in Cambridge. They essentially are where you can dine, where you can eat, where you can sleep, where you can study. There's sports societies, debating societies, you name it, they've probably got it. They're multidisciplinary, so it's a really good way to really explore meeting new people from different departments. You never know what sorts of conversations you might have at those. Again, as I said, you might dine there, so those Harry Potter-esque style dinners as well, the long gowns, very, very similar to that. So certainly we have a really good college video on our website, so I'd really encourage you to have a look at that. What happens is if you apply to the business school, hopefully you get accepted, you get a pass interview. At that point, we make you an offer. There's a number of conditions that you need to meet. And as part of that, we will apply to colleges on your behalf, but you'd be allocated a candidate manager who would talk you through that process near that time. But I'm sure Daniil might be able to share a little bit about the college experience, having been there firsthand.
Mm-hmm.
I think I could share it kind of an insight because, like, you know, what I love about the colleges, and this is not obvious from the beginning, since all of the MBA cohort is assigned to a certain college and all of us assigned to a different one. We have 31. And like in most of the colleges, you have at least one student. And remember, like keeping this, referring to the Harry Potter, remember all of the dining halls in the Hogwarts. So like each of the college has its unique dining hall and they are very different. As far as
which college were you in, Daniil?
Mine was called St. Edmunds, and this is a graduate college. So for the grown-ups, as I call it. And like I have a hilarious story that's because I, in addition to all of the benefits, I was also fascinated because I came here with a partner, and they have the biggest amount of family studios on site. And when I get into the college and met all of the conditions, which Annwen mentioned previously, they ran out of rooms. So like I was a part of St. Edmunds, but I live not on site. But this is a different story. The point that I'm trying to make is that you have all of these so-called formal dinners with the gowns, with like candles and so on and so on. And if you are a member of a college, you couldn't simply go to a different college. So this is also a great networking and socializing opportunities because students within the MBA are simply going all together, let's say with a member of St. Edmunds, with myself to the St. Edmunds. Then I got invited by a friend of mine to a different college. And this is why how you also, let's say, social networks and like personal bond is strengthening every week because the formals are happening every week. And I know some of friends of mine who actually visited all of the colleges throughout the year. And it was a hard task to achieve because I think that we have at least 5 colleges that we didn't have an MBA there. So like this is like kind of a challenge.
Can I just add one thing? Because I'm aware of that we're talking very much a lot about Harry Potter, but I do want you to also take away the thought that even if we sound like a traditional place, it's got all the traditional stuff going along. And actually, my favorite bit is when you go into some of the old colleges, you see these really worn out stairs. And you just think, oh, I wonder who walked on those. But what I'd like to also say is we've got that traditional element, but actually this is also a place which is really full of ideas and full of innovation and good thought and new companies, etc. So it's a juxtaposition of the old and the new, the modern, and actually quite agile, quite tough. And I think that combination is really quite exciting because you have, an opportunity to skip into one another. I love it.
I think that's a good point as well, Sadia, because as you've mentioned, we are at the business school right in the centre of Cambridge, right opposite the Fitzwilliam Museum, which is fantastic. If you haven't visited or get the opportunity to come visit Cambridge, I'd certainly encourage you to do so. But as well as that, as you mentioned, you've got Silicon Fen on your doorstep, so there's a lot of tech companies, a lot of really exciting things to get involved with. And actually, that leads quite nicely to mention that when you're in your first term, one of the first projects is your Cambridge Venture project. So you could very well be working one of these exciting startups or SMEs in the local area from sort of as early as sort of day sort of 2, 3, or maybe a bit further on than that. But for me, that's something really exciting as well that it's hard to miss out on, I think.
It sounds like
just a big someone who's been there. I can definitely say, oh, sorry, Bara. I'll flip back to you in a second. Someone who's been there before, I can say it is absolutely worth the visit. First of all, it's only I want to say it's an hour and a bit, hour and 20.
45 minutes.
There you go. But not so far from London. So when it comes to obviously going on job interviews and doing events, networking and so forth with alumni, I mean, it's super convenient, but it does have that rich history and that tradition. But also part of the history and tradition of Cambridge is innovation and ideas, because it always has been. So I think that it has that nice mix. And what Daniil was saying about the colleges is super interesting, because although you have a cohort of 200 something people, breaking it up into the 31 colleges has your first circle, your kind of family, and then you have the larger circle that is the entire batch. And I think that's a nice way to split your time, and the intercollegiate sports and other clubs and association opportunities you have also builds relationships across colleges.
And everybody wants to come and row. And and everybody has to have a go at rowing.
I had no interest in rowing before I came to campus. I was like, I actually want to do this. But you guys mentioned a couple of times silicon something. I didn't even get the second word.
Fen.
Yeah.
Fen. And fen is really the word for fen is really it's a moggy, isn't it? It's a water drenched area.
Okay, like a swamp.
Like a swamp, really. I mean, long time ago, East Anglia was really a swamp, and then the Dutch came and then drained it out. So that's why it's called the fen.
The Dutch know what they're doing with water. So what? Tell the people who are listening today, what is Silicon Fen?
Well, just to say, I mean, we're obviously doing a play on words with Silicon Valley, and we're very flat over here, which is geographically an not interesting place. But what we've got going around in Cambridge is really, it's the hub of all things technical, all techie things, and really the innovation hub or the software hub, and that for the UK. And certainly that's how it's been for so many years. Now other pockets are growing. It all kicked off many years ago with the Cambridge phenomenon, which actually was a result of the university. Was essentially spun out of the university. All these companies that were coming out of the university started to form their own organizations, companies, etc. And there's a cluster of companies that started to get together, and some of them, and actually quite a lot of them in the beginning, were around printing. And printing is fantastic if you think about it, about the impact that printing happens, etc. And then circuit boards and RFIDs, etc. So you can, and now bioscience is really, really big around in Cambridge, which has also meant, and of course these companies sprung up because we have a lot of good talent. We have a lot of good researchers in Cambridge, and there's a good easy pickings for companies. But because of that, that's now grown, and now we have a lot of big tech companies. We've got the company Arm. I'm sure you've heard of Arm, which has produced these or got the patents for the circuits that actually go into pretty much all phones that exist within UK, Cambridge. And we've now got Microsoft Research and Google and Amazon, etc., setting up their offices here as well. But there's a lot going on.
No, thank you for explaining this study, because I think a lot of people might not realize that there is this phenomenon there, right, in the back door of Cambridge. And, as you said, it sounds like thanks to the amount of talent that the university has produced over the years, it's been a draw for them to set up shop there, which creates a kind of direct pipeline for employment, especially in tech. Bara, I feel like I might have cut you off before. Were you going to say something?
Well, I'm just thinking that it's just a really huge arc, right? This like tradition into technology. And Danny, you were technology and entrepreneurship, correct? Is that what you said that you were studying?
Absolutely right. So I was trained as an engineer, so I was a coder initially, but eventually got into the entrepreneurial and startups field. So raised 7.5 million for different startups to date. And by the way, I think very interesting point about the Cambridge, because I did my research when I applied to Cambridge, as I think any proper admit an applicant. In fact, Cambridge is the second largest startup ecosystem in the world after Silicon Valley. So Cambridge Fan is the second largest. And in addition to all of those big names like ARM, as Sadia mentioned, or for instance, Raspberry Pi, these microcomputers that do it yourself stuff, it is also located and headquartered in Cambridge. Or for instance, I did my global consulting project, but I think we discuss it later, in the biggest deep tech fund founded by the MBA Cambridge grad of 2001, and it's also located in Cambridge. So like, it is really hard to understand up until you are that this is a really not a birthplace, but definitely one of the most important places in the world in terms of the innovation. And since the Cambridge is literally a small village to some extent, it's only 100K population, everything is close to each other. So it's like London, I think in terms of money, more deals are made in London, but London is huge. But here, everything, I do 10,000 steps a day simply because I walk a lot. So like, it's not even an effort. And I think I love about this. So like, we are discussing that university, business school, but I think CT adds a lot to the general impression and the vibe of your studying here as well.
Thanks, Daniil. Thanks for sharing all of that. I wanted to come back to admissions. We got into a lot of really interesting and juicy topics here already, but Annwen was mentioning a few things about admissions before. So I wanted to come back to that so people who are listening know how they can get in, because all of this sounds fantastic. And I'm sure people are like, I really want to apply to Cambridge now. That said, like, what should candidates or applicants expect? Like, what are some suggestions? Definitely want to hear from Annwen and perhaps Daniil from his experience, suggestions that you'd like to offer in terms of being a great applicant for Cambridge Judge.
Thanks. Really good question. Again, I think before even sort of talking about the admissions side, it's do your research. The fact that there's listeners here today, you're making those first steps, and that is so important to really sort of start exploring business schools, thinking about what your next steps are. Is it right for you? It's a huge investment, and you're going to want to make sure it's the right step for you. And it's also a really good opportunity to learn more about the ethos of the school, maybe what you can bring to the school, and how that particular MBA at that school is going to help you moving forward in your career journey and helping you to own your own career. From that point, in terms of what we are looking for, I'd say, as I said, make sure you've done your research. It does come across in your application, but really approach the application as a number of different steps and really enjoy the process. It might seem a little bit daunting at first, but actually if you break it down into smaller individual parts, it's actually a lot more sort of less daunting. So again, look at the admissions requirements, the first steps. And one of the things, we read a lot of applications every single year, myself and the rest of the team. And one of the things that I'd say to you is the amount of times that we read applications and there's elements of the application missing, bits and pieces that haven't been uploaded, or perhaps you've forgotten to put a career gap on your application. All these tiny little elements actually might make your application more competitive. So if you've got additional information sections in your application, then please tell us more. It's your opportunity to really sort of sell more about what you've been doing, highlight any missing gaps, help us learn more about you. And if you've ever heard me speak before, you'll probably hear me harp on and on and about seeing the 3D person jump out the page. So yes, we do look at all the elements of the application. Yes, we do look at the GMAT, the GRE, we look at your essays, but actually it's really good to know more about you, who you are as a person. And as I said, we do read a lot of applications, so those little bits of information are certainly going to sort of help you stand out and make us be able to sort of learn more about what your objectives are. In saying that, I'll go back to the essay questions, really look at them and really explore those in detail. I'd approach them as sort of talking about a beginning, a middle, and an end, like you would with an interview, what you did, what you learned, what the outcome was, and how you've applied that in the future. Just be really clear and concise. And I think sort of even before making an application as well, just take a step back and look at what you've done to date already. What have you achieved in your career so far? What are the skills that you've done? And actually, I think if you'll sit down, have a cup of tea, as I do regularly, you will probably find out that you actually have a lot more skills than you're actually giving yourself credit for, and actually being able to get those into your application is one of the best tips that I can do, because even if you don't think it's important yourself, somebody else might read that and think, wow, you know what, that's a really good thing to bring forward.
Really good tips. Thank you.
So you mentioned the GMAT. I don't know if you accept the GMAT and the GRE or the EA. Can you just talk a little bit about what's your take on it? How important is it? Because you're talking about a 3D person, and sometimes people say, well, a standardized test is, I mean, it's my world, but where does Cambridge Judge stand on this?
So we are unable to review an application if you have not sat the GMAT or the GRE. So that is a mandatory part of the admission requirement. You can accept, or we will accept both the online or test centres sort of format. That's absolutely fine. And when I mentioned we'll take GMAT or GRE, we have no preference. We will accept both. There's no sort of one weighted over the other. It's entirely up to yourselves which you decide to take. For the GMAT, in terms of average scores, I'm sure you might ask about that as well. In our current class, the class average is 690 for the GMAT. For the GRE, fewer of our students do take the GRE, so we don't have a class average. As I said, we don't take any preference to which you take, but for the GRE, I'd probably say 80th or 90th percentile would certainly be quite a strong score. But again, this is a very it's not hard sort of score that I'm giving you here. We take a very holistic approach, and we do take into consideration all elements of your application. What I would say though is if your undergraduate is below 2.1, then you might want to consider trying to achieve a higher GMAT or a GRE in order to offset that. Beyond that, we don't take the executive assessment, unfortunately not for the MBA programme. I believe other programmes in the school may accept that, but they have a different admissions teams. If you're interested in that, we can certainly point anyone in the right direction if anyone wants to explore that further. And lastly, I think I've forgotten that last point, but it'll probably come back to me. So I'll probably come back to you on that last one. But yeah, generally the GMAT or the GRE, we're happy to take both.
I think that's what schools mean when they talk about a holistic approach, that where you may be lacking in some area, you can compensate in another. So that truly is holistic. All of the things are important, meaning the GMAT or GRE, references, CV or resume, the interview is a big one, your experiences. But yeah, you can kind of recover if you're lacking in some area by being strong in another. So I wanted to switch over to academics, unless and when you remember what you were going to say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Sorry, I did indeed. No. So just to point out as well, as I mentioned, the GMAT or the GRE is compulsory. We do need to see that. However, we do have a 2-week grace period in each of our admissions deadlines. So if you sat the GMAT or the GRE, haven't quite got that official score report, you can still submit your application as long as we're able to verify that from the upload score within 2 weeks of that date. You can still consider your application in that round.
There you go. And there, I put the website up there again for people to see. I'm sure most of this information is on the website, but it's always good to hear from a real person, a human that's able to fill in the gaps and make things even more clear. So speaking about academics, I mean, obviously Cambridge is one of the most famous and well-respected universities in the world, right? Cambridge surely has some superstar professors teaching on the MBA, but who are some of your standout professors these days, and what are they working on? What makes them so great?
Well, I can kick off with a few, and then Danny, you can join in. But I mean, we've got, as you said, we've got some super faculty and people who've been with us for a long time, as well as new faculty who've been recruited recently. And I must say there's been a lot of new people joining us as well who are looking at very different topics. Some of our well-known, the ones I like working with particularly at the moment, Professor Jaideep Prabhu. I think he might have been on sabbatical when you were here, Danny, but he talks all about frugal innovation. See, it's always about innovation and leadership. So it's all about how to get communities to actually work together to work on innovation. We have a lot of professors who are Professor Jennifer Grenville, who's working on ESG and sustainability, and she's doing some great work on that front as well. We have great data scientists as well. David Stowell is well known within the field. He started off with some super work using data from Facebook a long time ago. And so, we've got corporate finance is being taught by Professor Gishan Tazinka, and lots of different faculty. We also have, I can't stop actually, now I've started, but really there's a lot of organizational behavior is being taught at the same time. Marketing elements are brought in constantly. So yes, and we have not only the core teaching, which is happening right now, but we also have electives which are brought in, and for that we can bring in a faculty from outside as well, who are much more relevant to the topic. So for instance, when we teach cultural and arts management, we have Angus Finney, who comes in, and his background is really from films, and he comes and teaches that concentration. So lots of different parts that are playing, but I will take one more moment of your time. We also have centers of research at the business school, and those are just fantastic. So we have some which are really famous, which are the Center of Alternative Finance, which is doing lots of great work on, different kinds of new economies that we're having and new currencies that we might be having, and on regulation. Then we've got the Risk Center, the Circularity Center. So, and there's a lot of research coming out of these. So just, it's not just about the faculty, it's about the centers and the research and what they're doing as well.
And the centers of research, I guess they're all on campus, right?
Yeah, they're within the business school, and actually some are larger than the others. We have a long list of centers, but there are certain ones which are a lot more sort of just growing phenomenally. We've also got Philanthropy Center of Philanthropy Studies, and these are the new topics that are being explored. So students can connect and work with the faculty on these on topics during the summer, but throughout the year, they can talk to them and engage with them on different topics.
Thank you so much, Sadia. Now that we've heard from somebody who's paid by the school, even though I'm sure, your answer sounded absolutely authentic. I wanted to ask Daniil, who's actually paid to be there, and what he thought about the professors.
To some extent, I was also paid to be here because I got a scholarship in addition to everything. But I still try to be objective. I think, as a person who loves to share knowledge myself and who is a startup mentor, I could say that being a great professional, as much as being a great researcher, doesn't necessarily transfers into being a great lecturer. And I think what I would like to highlight about Judge is that our professors are a great lecturers. So no matter what kind of, let's say, research areas they have, they are extremely interesting and engaging to listen. And what is important for me, they are using, for instance, an actual and modern cultural references in their lecture. So they are speaking our language. So the average age, I think last year was 30, and it is 29 or 30 this year as well. So we were talking lectures about South Park. Or, for instance, how on marketing we were talking about how to market the toilet paper rolls. And I'm not making this up. This was a reality. And I think to keep us engaged and to speak us with the same language is very rare. And I think the other point is that most of the professors that I had was the practitioners. So they're not only, let's say, do the research for the whole of their career. For instance, my professor in entrepreneurship, Simon Stockley, sold several companies before himself. And I think especially in entrepreneurship, it is extremely important. Or for instance, our professor of negotiation, Mark Durant, he is an anthropologist himself, and he actually helped many companies, even war conflicts, in making the negotiation, hostage discussions, and like all of this stuff. So like you are able to experience and talk with the people with a hands-on experience. And I think I couldn't say anything about other programs in other schools. I have never experienced them. But on my mind, this is what makes us stand out, and this is what makes you come to the class daily. Even after all of the socializing events, you still have to come in the 9 a.m. because you want to hear something interesting from a professor.
You're a great ambassador to the program.
I feel like we should hop over. I know we're headed towards the end of our conversation, but Sadia, this probably is for you. Just talking about some of the careers that happen post MBA. If you can tell us about the career services at CJBS.
Yeah. So CJBS. So we have yes, we work with the cohort throughout the year, and we start really early. I think that you might be finding that many business schools are having to start a bit early, but we actually start. So the class starts in September itself, but actually we start working with the students sometimes in May or a bit of earlier as well, starting to understand, getting to know them, and that's the element that I want to focus on as well. Because of the class size, we can actually engage with them at a much more direct level. So we try and understand the students from the values, their strengths point of view, but actually we would like the students to understand their values and their strengths, and then to come up with ideas of which direction they want to go in. We try, of course, the opportunities are available for them to apply to whichever direction. We try and encourage them to sort of not follow other people's paths and to follow their own instincts. What I love about it is the fact that at the end of the year, when you begin, everybody wants to be consultant, a tech person, or finance and investment banking. But the interesting journey actually happens is during the year. It's those squiggly careers we talk about, or actually the squiggly routes to careers. People decide, oh, actually, I've come across this. This sounds really interesting. I actually abandon this idea, go to this. The veering and the changing and the transformation that happens. We've had certainly good. I mentioned 2019. After 2019, that was a slump year. On the whole, every year we have very strong employment output. We have, again, 94% of the class had jobs, full-time jobs, within 3-month period last year, and we're waiting to know. For this current class that's graduated, we're doing the numbers and we'll know in a few months. But it's a strong careers offering. We start working early, we work with corporates, but we're also offering the confidence building, the leadership courses, and the personal and professional development courses, the networking opportunities to the students throughout the year. And I think that's what helps us know our students and for them to have the confidence in us as well as a service.
Nice. I mean, oh, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say local, international, what is there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So the split. So we have our class is quite, yes, Annwen can speak to this, but just to sort of say, in terms of how we are, we try, and I think there's an element to try and make sure that the class is never skewed in any one geography in favoring. So we've come in, we find a lot of people who are actually doing several jumps. I think the number of people who managed to work in the UK was phenomenal. I haven't got it on me, but probably around me. But huge numbers of people who wanted to move from home country to the UK just for a few years before they returned to their countries was significant. So double jumps, triple jumps were phenomenal last year, certainly. And I think in this coming year as well, we'll be quite amazed.
Yeah, I mean, employment stats like that definitely reassure people who are applying for the program. Like 94% placed within finding employment within. We avoid that word placement, right, in career services. Finding employment within 3 months.
Not the word placement. Yeah.
But I think the last major thing we haven't really talked about is about alumni. You know, once they've gone through the program. So maybe you could tell us a little bit more about what, besides Daniil, obviously, what some of your alumni are doing these days, as well as what kind of services exist for them at Cambridge Judge as an alum.
So we touched on this a little bit earlier about the colleges and the communities that are built within colleges, and of course at CJBS as well. So we have a lot of close-knit communities with our alums. They come in and they help us in many forms. And right now, just engaging with them and what's available for them is really this lifelong learning element. They can come back to us to ask for careers advice, certainly from the careers perspective, but also from an executive education. You know, they can actually come in. I think they allow discounts on executive education courses. And for many, and there are several reunions done, we also work with the classes in the most recent 3-4 years and continually give them courses to attend or a lecture series to attend for as part of their career and professional build up. And our next series is happening in March and then in August as well. So there are elements for them to come back and reconnect with us. And of course, the continual networking and drinks that happen globally, as well as, of course, many in London. But we have this Connect September. In September, we have an Alumni Connect session where globally, I think there are so many events that happen that bring alumni close in together. But with Mauro Gillen's new policy, the new Dean's policy about lifelong learning, I think we'll be doing a lot more with our alumni. So watch out.
Nice. That's watch out. I love it. I love it. You know, since we have Daniil with us tonight, I believe I heard you earlier in the conversation. Someone's mentioned you being an entrepreneur. Could you tell us what's going? I mean, you've graduated this September, is it right? So a month ago, you're fresh out, right? What's happening or what's in the works, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, sure, with great pleasure. So I think, like, as an entrepreneur, you always prepare for the worst. And I think this is like, because when you prepared for the worst, the great things might happen. And like basically what I did, that I actually joined forces with my other group mate, and we actually joined the company, a seed startup that recently raised $2 million to help and to boost the fan engagement of the sports fans throughout interactive digital experiences. And this is literally what we are doing right now. So like, I think this is the beauty of it. So like, we found ourselves interested in this topic. And actually, then we find the company, then we talk to the guys, and both of us got a position. At present, I'm heading the commercial department at the company, the chief commercial officer. But this is a title, and like, to be completely fair with you, in a startup, you could get a title that you want to. I don't want, like, no, this is like not a Facebook when you have thousands of employees. So like, but nevertheless, I could say that this is also have become possible because of the Cambridge. Because I think what we didn't mention is that I think in MBA in general, especially in Cambridge, is a key that could open almost any door in terms of the alumni, in terms of the future employees, but it is only a student who defines which door to open. Like, you know, I remember like yesterday, I think in our first term, we got a lecture on, I think, organizational behavior, and the professor asked us, like, guys, how many MBA programs do you think are running right now at Judge? And we are like, one, because it's really one. And he told us, guys, you are wrong. In fact, it is 221 programs that is running by the count of the students that are joining the MBA. And I think this simplifies or exemplifies the fact that each career path is different. And you could do an MBA in so many ways that it is only you who decide what to do and what not to do. So like, I still think, and I stand for, that Cambridge is a unique place for entrepreneurship. And this is why I didn't move to London. I stay and I live in Cambridge and work remotely and contribute to the ecosystem and trying to be helpful. And I couldn't be more excited about it. Like really. And this is my current job is definitely because of the Cambridge. And moreover, speaking of the career service that we just touched, they really helped me to tailor my CV. They really helped me with some sort of, I couldn't say mental issues, but uncertainty that I have when there are so many opportunities presented in front of you and you are simply like frozen, like really, like so many things. So like to untie myself. So like really, you know, if you ask me personally as an alum and who, let's say, already finished the program, what is the main thing about Cambridge is that here are humans, personalities, not functions. So I can sense the personal touch within the careers team, within the admissions team. And the funny thing is that actually Annwen was my point of contact in Cambridge when I was applying. So I think I just did a full circle right now, being an alumni who is speaking right now. And even my group mates. And we never was arrogant to each other. We was very friendly. And like, I know that even my group mates who were competing for the same position, helping each other to go through the interview to make sure at least one of us gets the job. And I think this is what makes a difference.
That's great. That collaborative kind of spirit. It's good to know that you have that camaraderie. Listen, this has been a fascinating episode. It's been great talking with you guys. I want to thank all of you for participating. Sadia, Annwen, Daniil, of course, everyone in the audience who's been listening and watching. We didn't get any questions in the live, but I know a lot of people will be watching the playback, and I'm convinced of how Cambridge got their reputation and their high ranking for their MBA program. So congratulations, and thank you once again. Best of luck to all of you. We're going to wrap it up right now. Bye, everyone.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.